All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting of the SDAB to order this evening. It is 6:02. Apologies for a few minute delay here. We'll get underway. So before we do some introductions, I just want to do a couple of quick housekeeping items. So our muster point, should we require it, is located across the street at the Potter's Guild. So we'll exit out of chambers to your left and then out the front entrance straight across the street. The bathrooms, if needed, if you go out chambers doors to the right, they're down the end of the hall on your left. And if, as a reminder, if you do have a cell phone on you, if you could please silence your cell phone. The other reminder we will give for anybody speaking this evening, we do have a new microphone system in chambers from the last time many of you may have been here. And so the microphones are sitting up front. There is a button that you need to press to speak. The ring will light up red, and then you just need to speak directly into the microphone. So, my name is Justin Laurie. I am a member of council and the chair for the SDAB. And at this point in time, I will ask the board members to introduce themselves as well. And so I will start off to my right.
I'm Donna Hayward.
Laura Lee Johnson.
Nico Weingarten.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll also ask our administration to please make their introductions.
Thank you. Through the chair, my name is Teresa Olson. I'm the Subdivision and Development Appeal Clerk.
And I'm Christina Michaud, Recording Secretary for the SDAB.
Catherine Kazera, Development Officer.
And I'm Justin Young. I'm the Development Supervisor.
Excellent. Thank you very much, everyone. At this point in time, I will ask if there are any objections to the agenda package. Seeing no objections to that, I will ask, are there any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? I will note that there is a publication at the back that was received after the date of publish for the package. It's a document from Sheffer Andrews Limited, so there are printed copies available at the back should you require one. Are there any other additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Yep. Yeah, if you could come to the mic, please, Mr. Pardo. And if you just press the button, the red light will come on. No, not that button, sorry, on the actual unit itself. There you go. You're on there. So if you can just speak directly into the microphone.
There it is. I didn't see it hiding. I just wanted to reference a document that was given to us this evening. I got this as we came in the door, so I've had no real time to review it. I have some friends looking at it too, but it's very difficult to pass judgment on this in the time we've been given. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Due to the nature of the hearing, any evidence may be entered at the hearing itself. And so while I appreciate that time for review is appreciated, any evidence that is new in nature can be brought into the review tonight. There is no requirement for anything to be submitted prior. Again, if there is a requirement, we could look at potentially taking a few minutes to allow anyone to review it if they so need it before we proceed into the actual hearing itself. We do have a couple of housekeeping things on the agenda in regards to adopting previous minutes, as well as electing a vice chair that may give sufficient time for a review for those in the gallery. With that, are there any other additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll ask, is there anyone who would like to request a postponement of this hearing? Yes, sir, if you can come forward and you can speak. So on the unit itself, yep, right there.
Look at that. Al Wilson, I happen to lease one of the buildings just to the to the west of the unit. So my concern here is just arriving and receiving this document as of just a few minutes ago. I feel it'd only be appropriate to give everybody here a couple weeks to go through this, to have a better understanding of what's going on, and then re-meeting at that time, because obviously 3 pages, 4 pages, whatever it is, to be able to go through and understand what they've said here is not possible, especially in the small print in that. So that would be my request, yes, that we would have the chance to reconvene, let's say in 2 weeks or so that we can have a thorough ability as citizens who live in the area to be able to understand that.
Excellent, appreciate that. I believe this is just additional information to the variances that have already been approved by the Development Authority, which are the ones that have already been appealed. Now, I can appreciate that. I certainly believe that we could give a recess of 15 to 30 minutes for the document to be read through. However, in the hearing, so even after we pass this point this evening, in the hearing itself, any new information may be presented either by those in opposition or those in favor of that. And
when will the hearing be, Justin?
The hearing is this evening.
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm saying that this is not enough time for us to go through this for this hearing. Like, this is not a 24-hour hearing. We're not going to be here till 6 a.m. in the morning. So what I'm saying now is that we need this postponed for a couple weeks so we can go through this. Because this is being forced down our throats at a last moment without enabling us to be able to respond, to be able to take a serious look at it. So we're not even being really given a chance to really appeal this because we've just received it.
So while I appreciate that, the appeal has actually already been filed, so you have already appealed it. This is supplementary information provided by I believe it's provided by the developer to support their position, just as anybody in opposition would have, and some has already been submitted, information in which they support their position on the appeal. So there's nothing new in here in relation to an appeal itself. There's no new variances. There is nothing new on that. And as I mentioned already, even past this point, when we actually get into the hearing, because we're not officially in the hearing itself yet, at any point in the hearing, new information may be presented for the SDAB to consider in making their decision. The information that is presented is not...
What you're saying is fine, Justin, except Scheffner, Andrew, the engineers, were not given 2 hours to produce this. Were they?
I'm sorry? I don't understand your question.
The engineers, the people who produced this appeal according to what we appealed here, were not just given 2 hours to say, come in and do this. They've been given whatever length of time, week, 2 weeks, whatever, to be able to take a look at this and then respond with their response. And I'm just asking for the same expectation that we would be given time to now respond to this.
So they have been given no additional time with any additional information. The package that was published...
No, Justin, that does not make any sense. You can't do this in no time.
This
does not take a few seconds to produce. This takes a lot of time to produce.
Absolutely, sir.
And they've been given that time to produce this, right?
Sir.
Yes, correct? Am I correct?
As the developer...
Yes.
The developer would have been working on this information through their development process. I believe all the developer has done is provided additional information to support what was presented in their development application to the Development Authority. This is essentially information that they would provide. And this did not have to be provided as a printed document in advance. This could have been brought forward during the hearing later on this evening. This is simply evidence for the Subdivision Development and Appeal Board to consider when we are making our decision.
Okay. Yeah, okay, a little disappointed in that, but I understand where you're coming from, and it is a disappointment for we, the citizens, not being able to take time to respond to that. Thanks.
Obviously, I support his point of view from my opening comments. I think it worth noting that the initial submissions were required from us for the appeal by January the 3rd. Later submissions written had to be in by September the 25th. The developer had the same amount of time as we did to do all this stuff, and he didn't. And it leaves me blindsided.
Mr. Pardo, that is simply for publishing. That is for the information to be in the published package. As I've stated, any evidence, existing or new, can be presented at this evening's hearing. There is no requirement to produce any evidence prior to the hearing. As I mentioned, they were not required to publish this before. They were not required to provide printed copies of this before. It was done, so it was submitted before the hearing was held. Printed copies were made available, but the developer could have produced this tonight during the hearing. There is no requirement to produce the information before. The deadline for appeal is a deadline based on the regulations and based on the act. The deadline for printed submissions is simply for those printed submissions to be published. Anybody is still free to come forward this evening and either speak or present any documentation in relation to the matter.
Well, like my esteemed colleague, I'm disappointed in the limited time we've been given to look at this. If that's the rules of the process, we got to live with it.
Again, I'm more than happy to provide a short and reasonable recess for those who wish to read through the document, to have an opportunity to read through the document. As I mentioned, we do have a few housekeeping things that we need to take care of first.
Yeah.
But I'd be more than happy to provide 15 to 30 minutes if required in order for the document to be reviewed and read. However, anything more than that, I believe, would be unreasonable based on the fact that any evidence can be presented in the hearing and is not required to be provided additional time for either side because it's the SDAB board. And we have, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's 15 days to reach a decision.
Through the chair to the board, yes, you have 15 days to issue the decision. That is correct.
So again, if the SDAB board feels that we need more time to consider the evidence, we are able to take that. But again, as the board, we are here to hear evidence from both sides, both the opposing side and the supporting side, in order for us to make our decision.
Yeah, definitely I would then request that we would be given a half hour to look this over.
Excellent. So the time right now is 6:14. So if it's okay with you, we'll give you till 6:45. In that time, I'm going to work through the couple items we have on the agenda in relation to the election of the vice chair and the adoption of the previous minutes. And before we open the hearing, we will then adjourn until 6:45.
Okay, we can live with that.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. With that, is there anyone else who would like to propose a postponement of this hearing? Seeing none, may I get a motion from a member of the board to adopt the agenda? We'll go with Ms. Hayward. Thank you very much. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. First order of business we have on the agenda this evening is the adoption of the vice chair for the Subdivision Development Appeal Board. The vice chair is adopted at the first meeting of the Subdivision Development Appeal Board after the annual organizational meeting. This is the first meeting after that. And so with that, I will ask if there are any nominations for the position of vice chair.
I nominate Nico Weingartner. The next.
Thank you. Nico, would you like your name to stand? Excellent. Are there any additional nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, I'll go for a second call. Are there any additional nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, third and final call for any nominations for vice chair. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion that nominations for vice chair cease. Mr. Weingarten, thank you. May I have a motion to elect Mr. Weingarten as vice chair? Ms. Johnson, thank you very much. With that, I will call a motion to question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Next included in our package are the minutes of the last Subdivision Development Appeal Board hearing, which was July 13th of 2023. We've had a chance to review those minutes. I'll just ask, are there any errors or omissions to those minutes that would like to be brought forward? Seeing none, can I have someone make a motion to adopt the minutes from the previous hearing? Mr. Weingarten? And with that motion, I'll call a question. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. So then at this point in time, it is 6:16. We will take a recess until 6:45 to allow those who wish to review the document that was presented from Sheffer Andrews Limited and be prepared for the hearing. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody back and call the meeting back to order at 6:46. Appreciate all those in the gallery having the patience to allow those that wish to review the document some time that they were able to take a read of it. I'll just have there be an advisement as well. The SDAB panel did review the document itself and has come to the determination that we don't feel that this document would present anything that would require a postponement of the hearing this evening. So we feel that we can proceed ahead this evening given the information that we have. So at that, I will outline the hearing process that we will go through this evening. So first and foremost, this is a quasi-judicial hearing and will be conducted accordingly. The hearing can only consider evidence presented at this hearing. The board cannot accept any presentations or letters after the close of this evening's hearing. The hearing is being recorded, and anything that is said during the hearing will become part of the permanent record. The board will hear from the Development Authority first. The board will then hear evidence from those affected by the appeal in the following order. First, we'll hear from the appellant or those opposed to the variance. Second, we will hear from those in favor of the appellant, opposed to the variance. Third, we will hear from the applicant in favor of the variance. Fourth, we'll hear those in favor of the applicant in favor of the variance. And fifth, we'll hear from the applicant and the appellant, providing any closing statements before the hearing is adjourned. The board will take an opportunity to ask questions between all speakers. And we would ask that we please keep presentations to a maximum of 5 minutes and speaking clearly into the microphone. We would also encourage that if information has already been presented by another speaker, that we don't continue to repeat information. We can simply mention that you concur with the information that has been presented. I'd like to ensure that all comments are directed through the chair. And if you have any concerns that have already been voiced by someone, please limit your presentation to new evidence. If you have any notes or pictures or documents that you would like to enter in as evidence, please ensure that you provide those to the SDAB clerk for the record, and if copies are required to be made, that can be done. And so from there, the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board may uphold the decision of the Development Authority, which would deny the appeal. We may refuse the development permit or uphold the appeal, or we may add conditions to the development permit. With the outline of the process, I will ask, does anyone have any concerns with the process as outlined? Seeing none, I will now ask the SDAB clerk to please announce the appeal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Announcing the appeal for a variance, development permit number 2023-D0223, location 4802 50th Avenue, Plan 2322256, Block 1, Lot 18. Proposed development, 6-story multi-unit building with 30 dwelling units and main floor parkade with the following variances. Relaxation of the minimum depth of a parking stall with direct access from a lane from 7.5 meters to 5.8 meters for the parking stalls located on the east side of the building, and a relaxation of the minimum access driveway width from 7.5 meters to 6.1 meters.
Excellent, thank you very much. Now, I will ask the appellant, the applicant, and the audience, does anyone object to any of the present board members, the SDAB clerk, or the recording secretary hearing this appeal? Seeing none, I will ask the board members, have any of the board members been in contact with anyone affected by this appeal, visited the site in question, or feel they should be excused from this hearing for any reason, such as conflict of interest or pecuniary interest? Yourself? There are none. With that, I would like to call upon the Development Authority to please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep it short. Hemcon Developments applied to construct a 30-unit apartment building, 6 stories high, with a main floor parking garage, outdoor surface parking at 4802 50th Avenue. The proposed development complies with the regulations of the land use bylaw with the exception of the depth of the parking stalls on the east side of the building and the driveway access to the parking garage from the south laneway. The application was approved with the 2 variances which are subject of this appeal today. You have my report before you and I'll respond to any questions that the board may have.
Excellent. Thank you very much. With that, I will look to the panel members for any questions of the Development Authority. Mr. Weingarten, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to administration, I'm wondering if we could get a Google Maps of the area up, please.
So the subject lots are, for what are shown here is 4802, 4804 A and B, and 4806.
Okay, so so there's no access from 48th Street or Highway 779 onto the back alley. It's all from, the access is from 50th Avenue, that existing laneway there at 4800 or?
Through the chair, the access is off of 50th Avenue or 49th Street to the west.
Okay. Okay, and now can you put up the site plan from the developer, please?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can we enlarge that a little bit? So in the key plan there, it shows lots 8 and 9 and lot 18. Can you tell me where lots 8 and 9 are located on the site plan?
Okay. Okay, to the chair, this is lot 18, the new subdivided lot. Right there. Lot 8 is also owned by the developer. I'm not sure, I think lot 9 may have been, if I go,
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Weingarten. The lot 9 there might be a bit of a misnomer. The area where the development would be is confined to lot 18.
Okay, so the paved lane then that shows up there, that's not on lot 18?
Through the chair to Mr. Weingarten, The paved lane there is moving through 4800 50 Avenue, or what's referenced on the key plan as
Lot 8.
Lot 8.
And you say the town owns Lot 8 or the developer owns Lot 8?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Weingarten, quite an irregular situation here with this being a private lot, which is owned in title by the developer. However, it does maintain a public access. This access was newly created while Alberta Transportation was doing updates and construction on Highway 779. Their original road right-of-way plan for the area does not reflect what was actually developed by the province and with respect to how the lane is constructed and the access there. They are currently working with the developer to rectify that situation and register a new road right-of-way plan which actually demonstrates what is the public access area. So for the time being, what's been communicated to the developers that this lot 8 here must be maintained as public access.
Okay, thank you. If I may continue, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, through you to administration. So the only way the back alley can be accessed is through that 50th Avenue lane or 49th Street. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Thank you. Does the town have the authority to designate a back alley as a one-way driving flow?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Weingarten. There is potential for the town to govern the directions of laneways. I would say that it's highly irregular and is not the subject of this matter before the board. Municipal development standards would dictate typically how wide lanes are, what method vehicles travel, the road cross-section, and those are prepared by our transportation engineers.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. I'll look to any of the other board members. Any questions? I do just have quick questions. So again, I know we do have the report contained in front of us. Just wondering if the Development Authority can give us a quick summary as to the reasons and the justifications to providing the variances that were provided to the developer.
To the chair, in regards to the variance to the parking depth, the development officer felt that it was reasonable given that just adjacent between the actual paved laneway on the east side and the back of the parking stalls, there's a 3.5 to 4 meter sort of buffer between the paved laneway, which gave additional turning radius and depth to the parking area. In regards to the driveway access, the 7.5 meter to 12.5 meter requirement is typically for an access to like a parking lot, parking area where larger vehicles are going to be turning in and out. This driveway access services the main floor parking garage only. There are only 13 parking stalls within that parking garage. So, I felt that there was minimal impact and minimal traffic going in and out of that garage, and that 6.1 would be sufficient.
Excellent, thank you. And then again, in regards to the driveway access, within Stony Plain, there are other, I guess we'll call them similar buildings, particularly here in the downtown core. Any of those other comparable type buildings, do they all meet the 7.5 meters, or do any of those have narrower accesses?
Thank you, Chair. That's a good question. There are a few that do and a few that don't.
In respect to those that don't meet the 7.5 meters, has the town received any type of complaints or had any issues with those from a traffic perspective or an access perspective?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Excellent, thank you. Are there any other questions for the Development Authority from the board? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation and for answering the questions this evening. I would now like to call on the appellant to please come forward and proceed with their presentation. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us here this evening. Before you proceed this evening, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourselves to the board and to the gallery as well, that'd be greatly appreciated. Again, just a reminder, when you'd like to speak, please make sure you press the button just below the screen on the unit there, and then you can speak directly into the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Good evening, board. My name is Phil Pardo. I am the appellant. Yeah, the appellant. Got to get the lingo right. And so I filed the original appeal on January the 3rd. I also filed a supplementary edition on January 25th, both of which should have been in your package, and hopefully you've all read them. I'm assisted tonight by my wonderful neighbor, because my throat's a little raspy, and she's a better talker than I. So I will introduce her as Pam Fennick, a recent resident on the street, which I should state clearly, I am also an owner on the street. I own 4807 51st Avenue, which is, we've lost the Google map, but anyway, it's in that same block. And Pam is my next door neighbor to the east. So Pam, over to you.
Hi, as Phil said, I am the neighbor. I'm the accountant just down the road, 4805 51 Avenue, just purchased this year. Don't know what else you needed me to say. That's it.
Good enough, I guess. Mm-hmm. And now we just go into the presentation.
Yep, excellent. Welcome. Thank you very much. And yeah, you may proceed with your presentation.
Okay, so we assume that everybody on the board has read the appeal that we submitted on January 3rd, as well as the additional documentation submitted by both Wendy and Phil on January 25th. So we wanted to look at kind of the main points with respect to the variances. Parking is definitely an issue. There is insufficient parking to start with. With 30 units, you're required to have, my understanding is there's 22 single-bedroom units and 8 two-bedroom units. Based on the Town of Stony Plain bylaws, you're required to have 36 parking stalls to support that, in addition to your visitor stalls and handicap or physical barrier stalls. The stalls provided are not sufficient to support that. The traffic, the traffic is going to, it's already a bit of a gong show coming down there. If you meet somebody on that east alley, one of us has to back up right into 50th Street. The visibility, if people are parking on that east side with the stalls, assuming that lots of people in Stony have a big truck, that it's going to present some significant visibility issues. Already, we have daycare kids that cross right there. There is access to the alley because of the variance on the parking with the garbage and things like that. There's no way that garbage truck is going to get down there. When we talked to the mayor about it, he said it wasn't his concern. It was a contractor issue. We currently do not have garbage pickup in the back alley because a garbage truck can't get down there. You want to take over, Phil?
Sure. On the parking stall numbers, the requirement should be 36 for the actual living units and 4 for the visitor parking plus handicap, for a total of 40. There is 34 that are provided. So right away, we're in breach of the bylaws in terms of what the Stony Plain town has set out as the standard. And, shrinking stalls and doing that kind of stuff, which the developer's been talking about, does not meet the bylaws. And my understanding of bylaws, the town develops them for a purpose, to be followed. Why are they not being followed in this case?
Further to the bylaws, there was that OTCP, the Old Town Community Plan was introduced, and I understand it was put right into the bylaws in 2019. They had restricted certain up to 2 to 4 stories in height in the Old Town community. 6 stories is just going to dwarf everything. There's also a comment right in that OTCP where it says, to respect the historical buildings of the area and encourage adaptive reuse, right on page 34 of the OTCP. The perfect example would be that recent renovation at 4813 50th Avenue, the new physiotherapy office. They've taken an old house and made it just, look beautiful. We'd like to put an example of some of the things that we see. This old house, of course, is a few blocks away. Everybody must know this one. But these are the houses that are on that street.
That's mine.
So all of these houses are unique. Were built in the 30s. They're wartime houses. And they all have character. And you're going to put in a 6-story building that's going to dwarf all of this nature of all of these houses. It's going to take away from the character, which completely goes against the OTCP, what your plan was. This house is, I understand it was built in 1920, and if I'm not mistaken, it was the old RCMP station. 1920? Yeah. And it's a historic house. You're going to be putting a 6-story building. This is the house we were talking about fitting it right in. This is 4813 50th. They took this house and they converted it. And they made it look beautiful. It fits with the neighborhood. This is a recent infill just a block away, and this is currently this is right across the street from Phil. He's really happy to look at it. And we just feel that does not fit with your bylaws even. And we thought something with a little more character, like something that fit with the neighborhood. We're not opposed to multifamily dwelling. We knew that was going in as soon as those properties were taken down. And then we talk about traffic and safety. One of the ladies, Wendy, did up a little diagram showing some of the concerns we have with the traffic and the safety and the parking and the variances. And it's this is a rough sketch. She's got the parking stalls backwards on here. It should be 10 on the south side and 11 on the east side. But in general, it gives you an idea of some of the issues we face coming in.
50th.
So, yeah, you're coming in off of 779. If you're heading south right now, going here on 779, you're going to make a right turn onto 50th and then scoot up the alley. I do it every morning. I do it every night when I go home. But then we've got traffic trying to cross, traffic blocking, and then in addition, if you've got the parking there on that east side, you're going to create visibility issues. Picture a large, big truck parked there. How are you going to see people coming and going? These guys are going to be backing up into people coming up that alley. Anything else?
That might help, Mr. Chair, to Nico, that might help you understand the concerns you were voicing earlier. The other point that I want to make about the parking on the east side there is that as it sits, those stalls go right to the lot line. It is a land use bylaw that they have to be 7.5 meters back from the lot line. So again, why is the town deviating from its own standards? They were established for a reason. And the other thing in those standards is that the parking of multi-use buildings is supposed to be at the rear, not on the side. Why is this on the side parking being allowed? The rear parking, yeah, okay, that's there, that seems okay. But the bylaw is quite specific about parking should be to the rear, not to the side of the building. Anything else?
I don't think so. I do know that I'm concerned, with my office being there, I'm required to have so many parking stalls to accommodate clients and staff. I don't want to have to come in and have to deal with parking issues, and I feel like if we can get ahead of it before it becomes a problem, because typically, you know, most households have 2 vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Can we skip back to that grey building? How do you do that? Go back one. Yeah. We've talked to the neighbours of on the east side of this new building that was built in, guessing, I'm not sure when, probably 2010, 2015-ish. It was after I moved there. They already experienced problems of tenants in that building parking in their area. And they sit just on the side. If you look, yeah, you can just see the side of the house on the left there with the green siding up there. The folks in that 3-story building, in effect, trespass on their own property to meet their parking needs. And that's just for a 3-story building with, I don't know how many units are in there. I'm guessing, 8 or 10, not much more. Now you're going to put 30-odd units in our lane where so there's going to be a lot more demand for parking, convenience parking. I'm just going to go in for 5 minutes, so I'll pull in my fill spot rather than go down the parkade. So that's a real concern that this is just going to make matters worse. And I'd really like to hear from, Mr. Chair, I'd like to hear from the development officers why they deem some of these variances from the land use bylaws are acceptable. I don't think they are. I don't know why the town would go to the bother of developing a bunch of land use bylaws and then ignore them, because that's what's happening here. Thank you. Yeah, anything else?
No, I think I'm good, Phil.
I suspect there's a few of the mob at the back there that want to say a word or two. So
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And so as we do with everyone, we will go to the board for any questions. I know myself, I have a few. I'm sure other board members do. And again, these may be questions of you, or they may be questions of the Development Authority based on some of the things that you've brought up. So to the board, does anybody have any questions? We'll let Laura Lee go first this time. Go ahead.
Through the chair to the Development Authority, I'm just wondering if we have the ability to address some of the appellant's concerns with regard to the town. I'm assuming that the town only made these 2 variances that we're talking about tonight because the other ones were good. So is there a way to address say it's supposed to be 2 to 4 stories and it's 6, or the OTCP, or in their appeal, the parking allowances for C3 development, and just explain the reasoning for the town passing those?
Through the chair, the C3 district regulations within the land use bylaw regulate the height of a building, the setbacks of a building, the site coverage of a building. They are the development regulations. They were in effect long before the OTCP was adopted. As for the number of parking stalls, there is a section within the land use bylaw 4.11, which reduces the required parking in the C3 district to 1 parking space per dwelling unit, and it's not based on the table that for multi-unit dwellings that requires a certain amount of parking per number of bedrooms. The visitor parking for this development, so they required 30 parking stalls plus 3 visitor parking. They have, so 33 parking stalls were required. They do have 34. They have to designate a certain amount of parking stalls as barrier-free under the building code. So those are not in addition to the required parking, it's just 3 of those stalls have to be designated barrier-free.
Excellent, thank you. And so just for information as well, that's found on page 15 of the package, of the printed package. And again, it does state a breakdown, and for clarity, the chart that was referred to, could you advise us which zoning is that? I think in my head, I believe it might be R8, but I'm not 100% sure if I'm right on that one.
For the parking table in the land use bylaw?
Yes.
Yeah, those regulations would refer to any other district that allows multi-unit dwellings as permitted or discretionary use, except for the C3.
Excellent. So the restrictions that we see listed on page 15 are the restrictions for the C3 district, the C3 zoning, which this lot is then covered by. It is in a C3 district.
That is correct.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarity. Any other questions? Mr. Weingarten?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Pardo. In your written presentation, you indicate there's 12 existing properties that use the back alley, of which 9 are residential and 3 are business. Mr. Lewis, in his written presentation, stated there's some 24 vehicles that are using that back alley. So that's an average of 2 per lot or per property. So I wonder, where do you park your vehicles?
Sorry. Mr. Chair, to Mr. Wingard, my property has ample room at the back, off the laneway, for 5 vehicles. So I do not park on the street.
Okay.
And most of the other lots, I can't really, I'm generalizing too much, but I am saying that most of the residents in that block park behind their properties on their own private property. They're not encroaching on the laneway or anything like that. The parking at my property derived from some rules regarding, because at one time it was used as a business, and there had to be, I think, under the old rules, whether they still apply or not, there had to be 4 or 5, and I can't remember the exact number, of off-street parking. So the lot was laid out to deal with that. And there's ample space behind me. I actually have a, how long's the RV, Sweden? I have a 24 feet RV parked at the back of my property that does not come close to impinging on the laneway. So there's ample room for what I'm doing, and for most of the other lots, the same is true. Mr. Chair, I do have a concern about the, sorry, I shouldn't, you know, I'm jumping ahead. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, no, thank you. You did also express some concerns about two-way traffic down the back alley and people having to back up and running into difficult situations. I'm wondering, as a resident there, would you be amenable to having that back alley designated as a one-way alley so that you would enter the alley from 49th Street and exit on 50th Avenue? That would right away alleviate the problem that you're showing there. You wouldn't have vehicles coming off of Highway 779 and trying to turn into the 50th Avenue access, but they would continue to 49th Avenue and go to the back alley and turn left into the back alley. That would also eliminate two-way traffic along the back alley. So you wouldn't have the issues of having to back up or encroaching on private property for two vehicles to pass each other.
Are you suggesting it should be a one-way traffic flow system then?
Yeah,
Okay.
with ingress along at 49th Avenue and egress at 50th Avenue, or 49th Street and 50th Avenue.
Can't say it bothers me too much, but I can't speak for the residents. I speak for myself.
I'm
Yeah.
just asking you.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, with a two-way lane system, anybody that passes now encroaches on other people's properties.
Understood.
And it's doing all the
That's why
time.
I'm making
Yeah,
that suggestion.
yeah.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Okay, well, there's my answer. I think you should ask the other residents too, because I'm one of, I think you quoted 13, yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
I,
I had one other point raised from the development officer's comments. Which takes priority? The Onaway Town Community Plan, which was approved as a bylaw in 2019, or the older land use bylaws that she was referring to? I suggest age has precedent. The newer should be the one that we should be driven by.
I will leave that to the Development Authority to answer.
To you, Mr. Chair, so these two plans should not be viewed as one taking precedence over the other. They work in concert with each other. The Old Town Community Plan is a higher piece of legislation, that it's an area redevelopment plan, which would perhaps inform maybe a zoning change. It does not supersede development regulations of the land use bylaw.
Excellent. So again, land use bylaw in regards to the development regulations would be the applicable piece of legislation when considering this development.
Correct. Specificity always prevails.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes?
It leaves me wondering why the town ever bothered to do this.
So I do have, first I'll ask a question of the Development Authority. We heard again through there that there was something in the bylaw about only allowing multi-unit buildings to have rear parking. Is that something that you're familiar with in the bylaw? Is that something that you can speak to?
To the chair, the C3 district, let me just find it, specifically states where a property has rear lane access, that parking should be from the rear lane. I don't think that it contemplated that a lane might loop around a property. And, you know, I believe that the requirement for rear lane parking is to increase the, you know, aesthetics of the front facade and not have front parking lots at the front of the building. So I don't think that it specifically means that there can't be a side parking lot from the laneway.
So thank you. So again, the legislation is not exclusive. It is stating that it should have rear parking, but it is not exclusive, stating that it must have rear parking.
I think it's exclusive, saying that it has to be in there. Let me find the regulation.
And while you're looking that up, again, in regards to the wording, is the wording rear of the building, or is the wording the rear lane of the building?
To you, Mr. Chair, could we perhaps get clarification from the appellant on which section they're referring to? I'm having a difficult time locating it.
Thank you. Do you have that information, where you captured that in the bylaw?
Yeah. I'm gonna have to dig a bit. You got it handy there? Okay. That's why I get it. That's why I have a helper. You got it? Oh, you read it out. You got it.
Yes, that would be Land Use Bylaw 2671/LU0/23, paragraph 4.1.1, subparagraph 1.b.
Read it out.
I think that's the right one.
Yeah, what does it say?
A new development within, oh, that's one parking space. Hang on, that's the wrong one. Did we not put it in here?
Oh, 2.12.6.
Did you bring?
Thanks. See?
Sorry, that was Land Use Bylaw 2671/LUO/23, Section 2.12.6.2.
Read it out.
Driveways and parking for a new development are restricted to the rear of a property where there is lane access.
Mr. Chair, that seems pretty blunt to me. And what was my other point? I've lost my train of thought. Oh, the comment, your question was about other areas that use side parking rather than rear. I know that area fairly well, I would say within easily 2 or 3 blocks. I have seen no other examples of side parking versus rear.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to direct this question to you, and I know you weren't the author of the illustration that's on the screen right now, so if the author is here, maybe that they can address it.
Don't worry.
I do have a question. We did hear from the Development Authority already that a part of the agreeance to the acceptance of the variance for the depth of the additional of the stalls on the east side of the building was that there will be an additional 3.5 to 4 meters of pavement of laneway added in between what is the current laneway and what is identified as the end of the parking stalls. In this illustration, does this contemplate that even if the stalls were brought out to the full depth of 7.5 meters, that there would be an additional 1.8 to 2.3 meters of width added to that drive lane?
Run that by me again, I'm lost.
Yeah, so on the diagram that we see here, it is showing the singular vehicle coming down along the east side of the building with the vehicle that's parked. What we've heard from the Development Authority is that the variance has been approved to reduce the parking stall from 7.5 meters to 5.8 meters. And part of the justification from the Development Authority on approving that variance is that the developer will be paving an additional 3.5 to 4 meters of what would currently be grass between the property line and the existing laneway. So essentially, you are adding an additional 3.5 to 4 meters of drive lane.
I get you.
So if you were to extend the parking stall to the full 7.5 meters, you would then still have an additional 1.8 to 2.3 meters of drive lane width added, making that current 4-meter lane approximately 6 to 8 meters wide. Does this drawing contemplate that additional 1.8 to 2.3 meters of drive lane width?
I'll get the drawer of the drawing to respond.
Awesome. Appreciate it, thank you.
It kind
Wendy.
of, hi, sorry. So it kind of does. However, I want it to be known that lot, 4,800 is actually owned by Alberta Transportation. Sorry. And I'm reading in the developer's notes here on that number 11, although 5.8 meter parking stalls should accommodate the largest vehicles, the developer could paint parking stall lines to 7.5 meters long, which would extend at 1.7 meters into the lane right-of-way, but would interfere with the operation width of the paved driving surface of the lane. That's the developer.
So again, the question that I have is currently the lane width is 4 meters. The current existing lane as it is today is 4 meters.
Right.
If this development proceeds, the lane width would increase by approximately 4 meters based on what the developer has stated.
Right.
The variance provided was 1.7 meters. So that means that there would be an addition to the current lane width of 1.8 to 2.3 meters. So again, you'd be going from 4 meters to 5.8 to 6.3.
Right, but in the notes that we received today, they're saying they're going to paint 1.7 meters onto the laneway, right? So that
That would
tells
be
me-
the widened laneway, not the existing 4 meters.
Okay,
So there's I don't know if we can pull up, in the package that was provided, there is the yellow section, the pink section, and the green section.
right,
So the yellow section is the lane as it exists today.
right, which is the property, I'm
The
sorry.
green section is the approved parking at 5.8 meters in depth.
Okay,
So the 5.8 meters stops where the green line meets the pink line. This
okay,
pink section is new laneway paving that the developer will be completing. And so that's an additional
Of the pink.
4 meters of width.
okay,
And so the current lane is 4 meters. There's an additional 4 meters that would technically make that laneway 8 meters wide if the parking stalls remained at 5.8 meters as per the variance. So if the developer were to paint them the full 7.5 meters, that would increase the yellow paved lane by 1.8 to 2.3 meters additional. So it would go from 4 meters to 5.8 up to 6.3. Based on what I'm reading in the information in relation to the second variance about the width, that 5.8 to 6.3, 5.8 to 6.3 would actually be suitable width for 2 maximum width vehicles, which I believe was 2.6 meters was the maximum width. That would actually be enough room for them to pass each other while not encroaching at all on the 7.5 meter depth parking stall. I'm not seeing that on this drawing.
go ahead. I don't know what to say.
So just a summation to say that when this drawing was developed,
Right,
that was not a consideration of this drawing. This drawing is drawn as the 4 meter lane with a 5.8 meter parking stall, not an additional 4 meters of lane width being paved.
Can I just say that they did this drawing to demonstrate the traffic concerns,
Yeah.
not the parking concerns. The
Yeah.
parking is part of it, but the biggest issue that
Is
this
the
was to draw
traffic.
was the traffic concerns with having the parking on that east side.
yeah,
Excellent. So.
That's what the drawing was for, sorry.
yeah,
So then a further question in relation to the traffic concerns, you mentioned visibility because of the narrow lane width and the parking
right,
stalls.
and it's a
So-
hairpin turn, right,
Yep, so with a wider lane width that would accommodate two-way traffic, that would accommodate the traffic coming around the corner because there would be 2 lanes. And then in respect to visibility, would a wider lane not increase the visibility?
that's not even gonna be possible, because the hair lane, or the hairpin,
90-degree
turn
turn.
there, has power poles there, and
Yeah,
we can barely get by it already as it is. So if you're going to, if you have a look where the power poles are, there's no way that this lane is even gonna be usable. And it looks to me, and again, let's stress that we're using, the developer wants to use property that is not part of Stony Plains property. right? It's the Department of Highways.
Unfortunately, the power, the power poles, well, I guess they are. Yeah, you got the one on the corner where the 90-degree turn is. That's that little.
That's right in the lane.
That's that little brown spot. The piece coming out from it is the guy wire. So, yeah, so that restricts right away the how much you can widen that. The other point I want to make is that the line of the parking stalls, the east end line of the parking stalls is right on the boundary of the property, the developer's property. Everything else is on the town property.
It's on the Department of Highways.
Or on the Department of Highways, sorry, yeah.
Which later on, if 10 years down the line, Department of Highways wants to use that property, and how's the developer going to be able to get his tenants or the residents? They're stuck in there, basically. There's no extra parking for them if Department of Highways wants to.
Take it back.
Thank you. To the Development Authority, what permissions would have to be obtained from Alberta Transportation if they are the owners of this property, and are we aware if there have been any permissions already attained?
I believe so. This map doesn't show, but that Lot 8 that we referred to earlier actually belongs to the developer right now. It's a titled property belonging to the developer. And it's my understanding that they are actually under negotiations with Alberta Transportation to deal with that public laneway going through their private property. So I would ask the chair that we let them speak to that when their time comes. I also want to clarify that the parking stalls are located on the private land, not in the laneway. I know Sheffer Andrews' report referred to painting lines into the laneway. They can't do that. They would have to get permission from Alberta Transportation to do that, but parking needs to be provided on the private property. So the additional 3.5 to 4 meter buffer that we spoke about will be within a registered road right away, hopefully one day. And it will just provide that extra width between the back of the parking stalls and the laneway.
Excellent, thank you. So again, for clarity, it will take what is currently approximately 4 meter laneway and increase it to between 7.5 and an 8 meter laneway.
Correct.
Excellent. And then I believe the developers obviously heard the comments in regards to the lot ownership and the relationship with Alberta Transportation, and so I feel they'll be perfectly prepared to address those when they come up to speak.
So I guess I have a question then. Sorry, I have a question. So this development was approved based on possibility of Alberta Transportation giving an okay on the development and using their roadway. Is that correct?
No, the development would be approved based on what is contained on the private lot.
Okay. Again, though, when I spoke to Alberta Transportation, they were concerned for future development of this, for their use of this laneway.
Again, at this point in time, I'll leave that to the developer to address. We're hearing from the Development Authority that the developer actually owns that lot and has titled ownership of that lot.
Of that lot, but not the laneway.
Which again, they have titled ownership of that lot, so they would be best suited to address how that is being managed with Alberta Transportation. I'm not able to answer that, neither is the Development Authority, so we will leave it for their presentation to have them address that. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. I appreciate all the information that you brought forward for us to consider. All right, so at this time, I will call upon those in favor of the appeal. I think, like I said, there are several people in the gallery, and there might be several that would like to speak. If there is anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the appeal, please feel forward to raise your hand and step forward. Please come forward. Oh, sorry, I've just got the lady behind you there. We'll have time for everyone. Again, just make sure you press the button and speak directly into the, nope, not that red button, on the, right below the screen on the microphone itself. There we go, yep. And if you can just state your name clearly into the microphone, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Barbara Blackport, and I live at 4812 52nd Avenue, Elmwood Court, which is a condominium across from this block. I know that you've talked about making it a one-way alley. If you're doing that there, then please do it on our alley. We have the same width problem in the back of ours, and we have all the people that want to hit that light that don't, so they come speeding down the alley to make the turn to go into Old Town. So that's one point. I'm in favor of what they're fighting. I know in our place we have limited parking. We have 21 suites and we have 20 indoor parking. One was sold without an indoor parking. So we also have space out the back, but they go to, some of the suites have double parking because of their size. So I know what this is going to create. I also know we took away areas so that we could get fire departments and everybody else into the building if required. And so we have quite a distance in front of our place with 15-minute parking. We only have 2 stalls in front of that people can park in unless we're infringing across the street for visitors, and we try not to. So I know what they're facing, plus I'm really worried about that intersection over there. There's no way out of ours down here unless you're going south. North, you can't go out. So everybody has to use that unless you go out by the lights. Both of the pedestrian crossings are dangerous. I've seen people hit in them, and it's not fair. You're adding 30 more units into that area. They're going to be turning like that map showed into a lane, even if they come down and in with the one-way. It's a problem. Plus, you have a crosswalk there. You have a business across the street. I have to defend these people and what they're fighting. It's not that they're fighting having something put in there that fits into the neighborhood. It's also the size-wise they're fighting. 30 units is more than we are in our Elmwood Court. That's all I got to say.
Perfect, thank you. And just before you leave, we'll just double check to see if anyone has any questions for you. Seeing none, thank you very much for speaking this evening. And I'll invite the next person in favor of the appeal. Excellent, thank you very much.
Chairman. Al Olson again. You got it spelled right? Good girl. Man, she's great, eh? Thanks again for giving us that little half-hour break to kind of go through things. We appreciate that very much.
Absolutely.
Chair, and again, tickle pink with the people that were able to speak up and also the questions that you've asked. Very thankful for those as well. So the couple things that I am still caught off a little off guard on, and my first question would be to the development officer. I don't understand what the connection is here of the OTCP to the old bylaws that was brought up. So I'm trying to figure out what the connection is here on that. Can that be a little bit more clarified so we understand where the connection is or what goes on? Because of course, we living in the area and working in that area are much more happier with the OTCP to have it continue looking and representing the small town of Stony Plain the way it is. Because I have people come from the city of Edmonton all the time and tell me how much they love coming out here. And you and I know why. Because it's different, because it's farming community style, because it's small town style, and they love coming out here and spending their money out here. And I make sure they do. So if somehow I could get some clarification on that, I would appreciate that, Chairman.
Yeah, is that your only point you'd like to speak to?
No, I've got a couple others.
Hey, if you'd like to speak to everything, and then we'll go into questions.
Okay, so that would be number one. Number two is one of the things, a part of the development permit was talking about landscaping. And some of the things I had read in that OTCP area, and when I didn't bring the information to be exact on it, but because I was told that we'd only be dealing with the parking aspect, but it said a revised landscape plan with proposed tree species to the Development Authority for review. If the existing trees cannot be retained on site and need to be replaced. So based on the current site plan, it doesn't look like the current trees will be removed and there will be no room for any new trees. So again, I'm questioning that whole landscaping area and on this site. And then the third thing, of course, is the challenge with the traffic. The idea of having one way sounds interesting, except that we've had a fair amount of construction back there over the last few years. And so with the construction, because it's a two-way lane, we've been able to come from both directions. So when they're working in an area, we're not blocked because we can come in either from the east or we can come in from the west. And of course, if they make it into one lane, then we have a challenge in that when they do their construction, and whether it's Fortis or there's been many different groups back there that have blocked off that lane completely to us, that would be my concern over the one-way situation. And I believe for now that will cover the three areas that I'm concerned about.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olson. And I'll just provide clarity. And yes, the Subdivision Development and Appeal Board can only consider evidence in relation to the variances that have been provided. So that is the evidence that we will consider, and that is the ruling that the SDAB will rule on, is just in respect to the variances, okay, not the development as a whole. The Development Authority, as long as the remainder of the development complies with the land use bylaw.
So really it is just the parking aspect and not even the traffic is what you're saying, Chairman?
So it is simply in relation to the depth of the parking stalls and to the width of the drive lane for the entry to the parking lot. Okay. Those are the only items that we are able to consider, and we are to consider the evidence to that. If any of the evidence presented on some of these other ones may apply to those as well, we can certainly consider that in our decision making as
right.
That. So,
and so zeroing in on that parking aspect and the lane area, just this afternoon, I was coming in to get down that back alley, and I ended up being blocked right at Rexall. I was southbound on 779. I made the right-hand turn, but I needed to get into the alleyway to make the left-hand turn, and I was blocked there. And because I was blocked, of course, I had to stop and wait, and there was 2 cars blocked on 779, stuck there because, of course, one wanted to turn, go where I was going, and the other one, because traffic was just stuck there. So we do have certainly a dangerous situation there, and especially with a children's play school, childcare right across the street there, and businesses over there with people going back and forth across there. Okay, so that would be all that I need to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you. And so then again, I'll just refer to the Development Authority again to just provide that overview of clarification on the hierarchy of the Old Town Community Plan versus the land use bylaw and kind of the purpose of those two plans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll show an image here which may kind of assist the gallery. Just bear with me. So this is kind of an overview of land use planning framework as it pertains to the town of Stony Plain. So you have large regional governing bodies and documents that kind of direct growth patterns for the area. Then you have very high-level plans which speak to how the entire town will develop over a period of time. And then you had neighborhood level plans, which drill down a little bit further and look at things at that level, the neighborhood level. And then you have the land use bylaw, which drills down to the very specific regulations for building heights, setbacks, things like that. So what's been discussed tonight is the Old Town Community Plan, which would fall within this neighborhood level hierarchy. And then you have the land use bylaw, which is the specific development regulations, two of which of those have been varied and which are the subject of this appeal. So none of these plans contradict each other. They just simply provide different context and different layers of detail. So development permits are issued with respect to the land use bylaw, and the land use bylaw can be viewed as a bit of a creature of neighborhood level plans.
Excellent, thank you again. So for a little bit more of a layman's on that then, the Old Town Community Plan would be considered more of a guiding document, whereas the land use bylaw would be considered more of a technical document.
To Mr. Chair, that's correct. Say, for example, if someone were to apply to rezone that site and perhaps look for a higher density or a different district entirely, then we would look to the Old Town Community Plan to say, okay, what kind of zoning is encouraged, what land uses are encouraged here. So that's the purpose and intent of that document.
Excellent, thank you very much. Does that assist?
Okay, well, kind of, but it seems like there's some overlap there, and I'm wondering how the overlap is dealt with.
In respect to which aspect?
In respect to the two sections up there that we had, the one, the red, was the land use bylaw. Am I right? And then the neighborhood design, that is the OTCP?
Yes, so the neighborhood design is the OTCP, the land development is the land use bylaw.
Okay, and then the neighborhood design is the OTCP?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm just kind of intrigued by the flow of that. So intermunicipal planning is the whole municipality, then the municipal planning, which of course comes down to Stony Plain. Then the OCTP fits underneath the neighborhood design, and you'd think then that would overlook, by the way it's set up here, the flow over the land development.
Yeah. So,
and you're saying no, it does not.
So as you go down the line,
Yep.
it actually becomes more detailed and more specific as to the allowances.
Right.
So for example, the neighborhood design, as was mentioned, will provide general zoning. It will say this area is a C3 district, and that's area structure plan. So every neighborhood, every new neighborhood receives an area structure plan. And it would state, certain areas are the color yellow, that's supposed to be R1. That's residential, large lot, detached dwellings. You've heard R8 was mentioned earlier, which is one of our higher densities. The C3 district is what would be existing in that neighborhood design. Now, there are some guidelines and parameters that are included in there, but they are not specifics. The land use bylaw is the next step down in the land development. So that would tell you if this area is C3, that will now tell you what is allowable within C3. And so that is what the Development Authority was referring to earlier in speaking to the parking stalls. So in some of the other zoning, the chart that was mentioned is what is applied to for the parking allowances or what the parking requirements. Whereas underneath the C3 district, which this lot is zoned as, it has the parking requirements, which are the one per unit, not specific to the number of bedrooms.
Right. Okay, so again, there really isn't an answer there from the overlap by the bylaws that are written in here, and that is my concern why there's the overlap of the bylaws here, but then they're saying it doesn't apply here. And that, of course, is my concern.
Yeah, so, and that's why the land use bylaw is the bylaw that provides the specifics. The Old Town Community Plan is the bylaw that provides the overarching direction. So the Old Town Community Plan, while it states things like it's desired to have 2 to 4 story heights, it doesn't restrict to 2 to 4 story heights. Those type of requirements or those type of allowances are in the land use bylaw based on the zoning.
So, yeah, and I understand, Chairman, it seems like we have a why here of going 2 opposite directions that doesn't make any sense. And you and I understand that when we hook a horse up to the cart, we want both horses going the same direction. We don't want one horse on the cart going that way and the other horse going that way. And that's what it looks like here in this kind of situation. So I'll leave it at that so that you can understand the picture in my mind of why this doesn't quite make sense. But I appreciate your time, and you're trying to clarify it for me.
Yeah, appreciate that. I think the Development Authority might have had something else. No?
Well, to you, Mr. Chair, there was 2 other items that they had mentioned.
Yep.
So with respect to landscaping, it does meet landscaping regulations within the land use bylaw in the C3 district. There are no private tree protection bylaws within the town of Stony Plain, so they are permitted to remove trees if they choose to, just like anyone else in town. There has also been some discussion tonight of changing the flow of traffic within a laneway. I just want to make sure there's an understanding amongst us tonight that the Development Authority nor the SDAB has jurisdiction over the right-of-way. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. That didn't really clarify, because again, you see 2 directions going in opposite directions here, even on the landscaping thing, which doesn't really make sense. But again, we appreciate your time, and we will continue to watch what happens here and see what we can do.
Just before you leave, I just want to check with the panel and see if there's any other questions.
Oh, certainly.
Seeing none? Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your comments.
They could ask me how old I was. Thank you so much, Chair.
Take care. Thank you. Okay. So I will call again for any of those in favor of the appeal that would like to speak this evening. Yep, please come forward.
Hi there. My name is Zoe Pardo. I am a resident at 4807 51st Avenue.
Awesome. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. First off, I would like to acknowledge and thank the developer for providing some more info on their variances requests. I can't even say that. Variances? Yes, that. What I want to speak to is I do have the whole mob over there that are very concerned about this development overall. Wanted to clarify that we are not against development on that land because the current state of it is dismal. It's awful, it's disgusting, and it's gross. What I wanted to, I'll hit on the variances first, sorry. So variance 1, by reducing the depth on the east side of the parking, that is not alleviating any problem whatsoever. It's in fact increasing problems there. All this talk about making the alley a one-way is you're going to have some major hang-ups with people going on to, what is that? That's 50th Ave? Yes, because now you're going to, if you have the traffic coming in from 49th Street going out onto 50th Ave, that is Collector Road to go on to a major main highway in Alberta. That's not the answer. That access ideally needs to be shut off because it's a hazard waiting to happen. There's going to be a lot of heartache from that particular site there. And again, somebody already stated, but I'll just reiterate that there, in the bylaws and stuff, it does say that there's access or parking should be at the rear of the building. For variance number 2, moving on to reducing the driveway width, that doesn't accomplish anything, absolutely nothing. In fact, it compounds the already restricted access in there. There's utility poles and guide wires. You know, I drive a little Chevy Equinox. I can barely make that turn without hitting that guide wire, and now you think you're going to send garbage trucks and fire trucks down that laneway too? That is not happening. not to mention all the overhead wires and stuff there. So just the simple reducing the driveway width to alleviate any issues there is like putting a Band-Aid on a limb that's been cut off. It's not going to help anything. Honestly, like, there's a lot of people arguing different points and stuff like that, but there hasn't been any kind of solutions put forward. So I would say my personal recommendation would be to the developer would to actually be to half the amount of units in there, because that is going to eliminate all that east side parking, which is going to be a massive issue as development of the town grows. I mean, it's growing. That development is right next to a main highway. It just, I couldn't personally want to rent a unit that backs onto a highway. That just seems a little off to me. But yeah, the other big thing to me personally living back there is the access for a fire truck. You're not getting fire trucks in that back alley. The current contractor for the town of Stony Plain refuses to take his garbage truck down there. So a little bit of a warning to the developer themselves. Good luck finding a contractor who's going to come pick up your garbage, because they cannot get their trucks down there. They refuse to back down because that's the only way they can get there. They cannot make that corner. And without actually going into the sidewalk, developing the alley more to the east onto the actual sidewalk, there's no way you can make that corner any wider. It is tight, very tight in there. So those are my points, I guess.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's see, do we have any questions? I just have one for you in regards to the second variance, the reduction, minimum width of the driveway access. You were mentioning something about the turning of the corner there. I just want to make sure which portion of the narrowing are you referring to?
So they are asking to relax the minimum access driveway width. So they want to take it from 7.5 meters to make it narrower to 6.1, is what I'm understanding. To do that is not alleviating anything. It's making it worse. Nobody in Stony Plain drives a little car. Well, some people do, but the majority of them are the farmers with their big pickup trucks. If I can't make the corner on that alley with my little Chevy Equinox, I don't know how those people are going to make a hairpin turn to get into that driveway.
Okay.
And plus coming out, I mean, if somebody's coming up that alleyway, there's going to be a lot of bumpers getting smashed in. It's a very tight alleyway overall.
Yeah. So just so I'm understanding you correctly, what you're stating then is the entrance to the indoor parking that is being reduced to 6.1 meters. You're stating that the turn that would be on the southeast corner of the property, that you feel that narrowing, again, would not allow a vehicle to make the appropriate radius of a turn to come down the paved lane on the east side of the property and turn into that parking area.
Right, it's constricting it even further. It's not going to fix anything. In fact, it makes it worse.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in favor of the appeal? Just check one more time. Anybody else like to speak that's in favor of the appeal? No. Seeing none, I will just look to the board to see if anyone feels they need a recess before we move on to the applicant. So seeing none, then I will call the applicant forward and I will ask the applicant to please proceed with their presentation. Thank you very much. I'll just reiterate again, before you speak, if you can make sure that you press the button in front of the microphone there, you'll see the red lights come on. And then if you could both just introduce yourselves before you get underway, that'd be fantastic.
Perfect. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to the team here with the patience and listening to everything. Sincere thank you to all. Myself, Sweet Pal, I have Raghuvinder with me. I'm part of the development team. I hear concerns.
Sorry, if I could just have you speak right into the microphone.
Okay, perfect.
I know that you'd like to address them. They can actually hear you better when you speak because the speakers are above them. So if you speak right into there, they will hear you much better.
Thank you. We'll follow. I've heard the concerns we went through when we bought the property. So I'll start with the introduction, how we got into it, and how the development was decided. We bought the property. It was a bankruptcy sale sitting there with Lot 8 attached. So currently the titles of Lot 8, which has been brought numerous times, is currently was given to us. And we had no clue what Alberta Transportation was looking to do. We were into, okay, this is Lot 8, these are 4 units, this is what the development, it is a C3 zoning. It's in a very, very terrible shape, not just bad, like I would say, it's a sore eye when you enter the town. It is what it is representing the town today. And I am a part of the town because I am like part of the community now for last 1 year or so. I have received more than 8 enforcement calls. Our team has sincerely addressed, like trying to change those doors, those windows, try to develop the property as it was initially. We went to the town to leave the property as it is and develop that way, but it was not possible to develop as it was. There would be email communications, which the development committee can say that was our first sincere effort to see how we can be part of the community. Once those efforts failed, we were like, okay, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? So if Lot 8 and the other development, we could have easily got into 50, 60 odd units. And that is what a typical developer will look to develop, not 30 odd units. It actually doesn't even break even for bringing in the cost in and everything else. Working with Alberta Transportation, they came back to us and said, hey, there was a huge mess up. This lot should not have been sold by the Supreme Court to you. Sorry, how do we fix this? Can we work this? And I was like, okay, we will figure out a way how we can address this. We could have the zoning, C3 zoning allows even more higher density. As a developer, I'm not saying I'm doing anyone any favor today. I'm not saying that way. I don't want to come that way. I carry positive energy and I value positive energy. So what I'm just representing, what are the thoughts behind the development. So we could have gone and asked for a variance by going, oh, we need another 10 units. We didn't. We saw there are 34 parking stalls coming. Yes, there is a variance. We are looking for the parking, but that is on Lot 8, which we are working with Alberta Transportation, how to fix it. If that Lot 8 is converted to alleyway, it's actually going to increase the alleyway from 4 feet to almost 6 or 4 meter to 6 odd meters. Actually, it's going to help in two-way traffic flow. And we never went in, even in our first application, to say, hey, we want to build 40 units. On the top floor, we are only building 2 units. All other floors, we are building 6, 7 units. We didn't go for 7 units there. We were like, there is one extra parking. We could have gone one more unit as well, but that was not the purpose. We don't want to go for variances. We didn't want to. It is an eyesore, 8 enforcement calls. We want to move ahead in our life. We sincerely want to move ahead in life. That, okay, we bought it, lot 8 is with Alberta Transportation is stuck, now we are stuck. Town is saying, okay, remove this SORI, and I'll be owner of this property for next 50 years because this is a rental. This is a rental building. So it's not I'm trying to build something and run away tomorrow. I will be part of the community as I am part of the community with my neighbors there. And I'll continue to be part of the community. The statistic says to continue, there is 3 to 4 million housing shortages by 2030. That is published report by CMHC. And it is a bigger picture vision for whole Canadian population if that there is the amount of immigration happening in Canada currently, the amount of shortages of housing happening in currently. So looking at a bigger picture plan, adding 2 meter to the laneway, going with the C3 zoning, we went with whatever was achievable, not trying to shoot the moon, but working with what was in the framework. And I 100%, as I said, I work for the energy and I have 2 young daughters and I strongly believe in that energy and I'll continue to live my life that way. So this has been, even the Schiffer-Andrews report, we went a step ahead in that scenario too. We were like, okay, I hear these concerns. We talked to the town development team. There were presentations we could have made, but we went and hired a professional that, hey, guys, like, are we making an error? Is it going to create some issues? So we requested them to do the study. We also addressed how fire truck is going to access. So we shared the sweeping routes, how fire truck is going to access. Actually now with that additional lane, if we work with Alberta Transportation and transfer the title to them and keep that laneway additional 2 meter, will actually increase that access to the property. So if fire truck was only going to come from one side, it actually now can come from both ways. So overall, it's going to increase the access. I'll continue to be part of the neighborhood for next 50 years, and then hopefully my kids in future. And I sincerely thank you for all the passion and all the commitment that everyone has shown to be part of this meeting today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
No, thanks.
Nope. Okay, thank you very much. I will look to the board. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Make sure you press your microphone button.
Just one question here through the chair. On the paper that was just given to us this evening, the pink is where you guys are going to add extra laneway, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. But that's only on the one side where that parking is.
It actually covers the full lane area, and there will be curb on the 50th there, so that people are not jumping on the other side, so that if anyone is backing up, there is enough space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weingarten, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the proponent. Just for my clarification, who owns Lot 8?
It is, the title is in our name.
The
currently.
title is in your name. On that diagram, can you outline where Lot 8 is?
The dotted line that goes out and then curves back in is lane, Lot 8.
Okay, so south of that, is that Lot 9? Or is that still part of your, okay, so Lot 8 is that,
Lot 8 is where the access starts.
right? Okay, so the Lot 9 extends south of, and Lot 9 belongs to Alberta Transportation?
That is correct.
Okay. So the access then from 50th Avenue is partially on your property and it's partially on transportation property, is that correct?
That is a paved lot.
Yeah,
The
that paved
access.
lane, yeah.
Yeah, the access is as per the city roadway currently. That will be the additional paved lot.
That would be what?
The additional paved lot that we are working with Alberta Transportation. So if the negotiation is if they get Lot 8, we get the rights to have the access there.
Okay, so that portion between the green area there then and the paved lane south of Lot 8, that's where you're negotiating with Alberta Transportation to pave that?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And we have almost reached an agreement.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's some paperwork to be signed.
okay.
Thank you.
Further questions? Not seeing any, so I do have, and you just addressed it a little bit. When do you anticipate a decision would be made between yourselves and Alberta Transportation in respect to the lot and the road right away?
So when we started to design the project to 60 odd units, we thought Lot 8 and some portion of Lot 9. When the Supreme Court sold the properties to us, I can share the titles, how they sold to us. It was, I think they never got any response from the old owners or what happened. I'm not aware of the history, but a lot of things in the background, in the framework didn't happen. And we had no clue. Honestly, no clue. When it went to the architects and we say, oh, we own this lot, and they are like, okay. And then some other guys are saying, okay, no, but this should have been part of Alberta Transportation. So at that time, we realized, okay, we need to go talk to Alberta Transportation. And as soon as they saw that there is an owner, because it was sitting, I don't know how long it was sitting there as a court order sale, but they were not able to reach to the owner as well.
So in your negotiations with Alberta Transportation, you said you're very close to having that completed. When do you anticipate that being completed that would then allow you to essentially construct as you've presented it?
They have sent us the proposal, we just have to sign it.
Okay, so they have already approved this, it is just pending your signature, which I'm assuming is pending an approval.
Correct.
Excellent. So the other question that I have then, we've heard several concerns tonight about the southeast corner. So coming from the laneway, and I understand, if I understand the plan correctly, you're also paving the portion of the lane behind your lots that would be south of the new development. You're paving that back lane that's currently gravel?
That is correct.
Okay.
We want to make it
Yeah.
better.
So are there any design improvements or are there any traffic flow improvements that are proposed for that southeast corner, essentially right around where that black dot is? So coming around that, we've heard lots of concerns about with the power pole, the guy wire that's there, that turn is currently very tight, and we're hearing that because of how tight that turn is, the reduction in the width of the driveway access, it may impede people from being able to actually appropriately make that turn. So are there any type of traffic flow improvements being done on that corner that will alleviate that?
We'll work with the development committee team and see what best we can do for the neighborhood, which I'm part of the neighborhood.
Thank you. And so I'll ask the development authority then, would there be any ability or requirement, or what would it take, given that Alberta Transportation likely owns that right-of-way, what would be the ability to require, I guess, more of a bulb out on that corner to extend a turning radius on that corner to provide for more adequate or safer traffic movement?
To you, Mr. Chair. The proposal as it currently exists meets all of our regulations, meaning the municipal development standards, as well as the land use bylaw. So there's no requirement for them to do anything beyond what they've presented here. If they choose to look into extending the lane and having a discussion with the province about that, the lane is as it was created by the province, right? So it obviously meets their standards. If they want to improve it, they could speak with Alberta Transportation about making some alterations, but it's not something that the Development Authority would impose upon them.
Excellent, thank you. And so then, we're going for a little bit more clarity. Based on the town standards, the town has standard requirements for widths, turning radius, etc., that include appropriate engineered measurements based on all the various widths, etc., that are required. This corner, as it sits today, meets all of those requirements.
To you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. I would just add as well that these plans were circulated internally. A full civil set was circulated to our engineering team, who has approved the drawings.
Excellent. And in addition to that, circulation include emergency services such as fire and ambulance?
Correct.
And did they have any concerns with this?
Not to my knowledge.
None mentioned.
None brought forward? Okay, thank you very much. Another question that I have then, you did bring up the CMHC report about the housing shortage. The town of Stony Plain does have a housing needs assessment that was completed. I'm just going to ask the Development Authority, does this development comply with the needs that were brought forward in the town of Stony Plain housing needs assessment report?
To you, Mr. Chair, absolutely. There is a shortage of housing as indicated in the report that you mentioned, and would strongly encourage this type of development.
Excellent. And if memory serves me right, and just for clarity, I believe that report called for large increase needed and predicted in the future to be needed of 1 and 2 bedroom units. Is that correct?
To you, Mr. Chair, that is correct, yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Excellent. I'll just look to see, are there any other questions? Yes, please go ahead.
Through the chair to the Development Authority. On the diagram that's currently on the screen, there's some little dots there. Power poles were brought up before. Are the ones that are WPP, are those power poles?
To the chair, that is correct.
Thank you. And then I believe as well, labeled GW, that would be the guide wire then that was previously mentioned as well, correct?
Correct.
And so based on the drawing, I'll just ask you, the developer, it looks like you're proposing like a bulb out there, like a curbed bulb out. Is that what I'm seeing there, is that the power pole and the guy wire would kind of be right on that edge of that bulb out?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Excellent. Seeing no questions, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
So at this time, I would like to call upon anyone in favor of the applicant in the gallery this evening that would like to speak. So call one more time. Anyone in favor of the applicant that would like to speak? Seeing none. So to the applicant, do you have any closing comments that you would like to make now that we have heard from both parties? Yep, please feel free.
Mr. Chair, listening to all the various comments and what have you, there are two, maybe 3 or 4 final points I'd like to make. Oh, you've taken the picture now. Can you put that one back up again? Whoever had that picture? Yeah, put that one back up.
Which picture?
The one that we were just talking about that was there a minute ago.
Okay, so the drawing that is on
And move it down.
page 22, I believe.
Yeah, bring it down so we can see that's what I want to look at right there. Stop there, that's fine. I'm assuming that the concerns around the lower corner that I've just dropped off the page can be resolved. The number one issue that the town really needs to think about is that lane access onto 50th Ave and round to the 5th. That is a disaster area just waiting for an accident to happen. And keep in mind, kids, there is a daycare across the road. So we really run the risk of having not just metal, but metal kids. And I just don't think that's acceptable. The second point I want to make is I'm considerably confused as to which priority has what in terms of the OTCP and the land use bylaws. The OTCP spells out some very specific statements and concerns, and that was written sometime, it was actually 2019, September 2019 when that was approved, and the land use bylaws predate that. So again, it would seem to me that the specifics of the OTCP should be met if it's in contradiction with the land use bylaw. There is a definite overlap between the two. The development officers have made that quite clear. But to sort of ride roughshod over the OTCP just doesn't make any sense to me. And as I said earlier, why did the town bother doing it if you're going to ignore it? Hopefully the developer's right in what he's saying. He's close to a agreement with Alberta Transportation re Block 8. But in his shoes, I wouldn't be putting a penny into that development until I have that absolutely nailed down, crystal tight. I'm talking there as a layman or a developer or whatever. Why take the chance that you suddenly find a chunk of your land has been taken back by Alberta Transportation? And I also agree with the comments about housing needs. I want to make it very clear, the residents in that block are not against development. I am tired of looking at a bunch of wrecks that should be burnt down. They've been there for 14, 15 years at least, if not longer. A half-hearted attempt was made to renovate one at the end, and why anybody would even put the money into that, I don't know, but they did try, fair enough. And this is now another idea which still has many, many flaws, and it would be nice if the developer came and talked to the residents first. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Nope, it's just closing statements. Thank you. So with that, I will ask Do the applicant and the appellant feel that they have received a fair hearing? So if there is on the applicant, if you do not feel, or sorry, the appellant, if you do not feel that you have had a fair hearing, can you please come forward and state the reasons? Okay. Thank you. And just a second, I'm just going to check with our SDAB clerk in regards to.
Through the chair. So you can ask anybody in the audience to indicate if they felt they didn't have a fair hearing, but somebody shouldn't be speaking on behalf of the appellant. If the appellant wants to say they didn't have a fair hearing, that would be up to the appellant. If somebody else presenting who feels they're an impacted landowner wants to state that, then they would state that as themselves.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So again, just so this is clear, if you are wishing to state that you did not receive a fair hearing, you are stating that as yourself, not as the appellant.
Chairman, and if that's okay, if I can't make a comment on that, we'll turn it back over to them. I would just like to make a little mark of interest there on that corner, which I drive every day, which is the bottom corner there, the south corner where you have to turn to head west on the alleyway there. I have a crew cab quad truck with full-length box, and I have to crawl around that corner every day. That's how small that is. So I have no idea how any fire truck will ever make it around that corner ever, because I have to crawl around it, and all I'm driving is a quad cab, crew cab with a long box, and I can barely squeeze around it. So that's just a note that I will make there, just so you know.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments, and so I will ask the question then in regards to the process undertaken this evening. Do you feel that you have received a fair hearing? Do you feel that you were able to? Do you feel that you? No. So I'm asking you. Yep. I'm speaking to you. No. So I'm speaking to you. I appreciate your comments. If I could. No. If you could turn your microphone back on there. If you could turn your microphone back on. Thank you.
My concern and over the whole thing is that I'm very pleased with as far as going through what we've gone through. My concern is I just don't feel we've come to the real basis here of what our concerns are as citizens. And we as citizens who live and work in the area, our concerns really are not being brought up here of what's going on here. Because all of us, as has been repeated several times, is we do want to see development there. We do want to see improvement. We're not happy with what's happened there over the last 10, 15 years. It's been a disaster. We just simply want the aspect of the OTCP, whatever it's called, and the land use. We want to see that brought together to continue the view that we have of Stoney. And I happen to dye this white to look smarter. So I've only lived here in Stoney for, boy, I hate to admit it now, I don't even know, 40 plus years anyhow that I have lived in the area. And so we do love this town. We raised all 4 of our children in this town, and we've always bragged up this town, and therefore we would like to see that. We don't mind growth per se, we just like to see the overall quality, I guess, living quality and everything in this town continue the way it is. And with the look at what's being put on the corner here and the pictures of showing this 6-story building and all, we do not feel that that is going to continue as rental units continue the quality of what this town is, what it shows, and what it is. And so that's why I have a concern about what we've done this evening.
And again, so thank you very much for your comments. So in regards to the process this evening in the hearing, do you feel that you have been able to state your concerns through the process?
Well, yes, at least we've been able to state them. I'd go so far to say yes to that. We've been able to state them.
Okay. And do you feel that there is anything, again, about the process of the hearing that was not fair?
Well, as I said earlier, I just
through the chair, if I can just interject. I just wanted to provide clarity. So we're asking if the events that happened this evening only, you feel that has been a fair process. The process of how the Development Authority issued the permit is not part of what we're asking you. We're saying the hearing that we've had tonight, the ability for you to provide your evidence, provide the information to the board to ask questions, was that a fair process for you during this appeal process?
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and what I am coming from is the whole area of the big picture, not just a little tiny picture, and so that's where my disappointment is. So if you want to put in the term disappointment, yes, I am disappointed.
So through the chair,
So I'll repeat that again. If you want to put in the paperwork that I am disappointed in over the overall picture, yes. As far as the treatment and everything, wonderful. This has been an absolute pleasure. But I am disappointed in the perspective of what we see here. And of course, it's outside of the control because this is the way the laws have been put up and everything else. So obviously, as citizens, we're kind of being stuck into a little box here that we may not appreciate, but that's how life is. Okay, thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So again, I will ask if there is anyone who feels that they have not received a fair hearing. To the appellant, the applicant, do you feel that you have received a fair hearing? Yes?
Yes.
Yes?
We endorse his comments, but yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So with that, I will state, in accordance with the provincial legislation, the board is required to hand down a decision within 15 days from the date of today's hearing. No decision is binding on the board until it issues a written decision. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank everybody for coming out this evening. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank for all of the detailed information that we've received in the package. Everything that was received in the package has been read and will be considered by the board. Everything that has been said tonight, I know there's some significant notes and everything has been captured. So we're appreciative of all of the information, all the concerns that are brought forward this evening. And we will take those into consideration in regards to the variances in which we have to consider. With that, I will close the hearing and I will excuse the gallery. Thank you very much again for attending this evening.